Morning everybody, nice to see so many here as James said. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Debbie and I look after the administration team which collects your money, collects all the data from you about all of your members that are in the local government pension scheme and then liaises with you to actually then eventually pay the benefits for those individuals. So that's what we're doing is collecting the money, hopefully doing the benefits accurately and on time. That's what we need to do at the end of the day. No matter how we get there, I think that's the crux of what my team, together with yourselves, that's what we're setting out to do for your employees. So what I thought I'd cover is sort of what have we actually been doing across the last year. So what's the team been busy doing and what have we been working with yourselves to get done? We have now got all of our employers giving us their data electronically. So at the end of each month, your data on your employees that matches the money that you're actually paying over comes now either directly through an interface out of your payroll through into our portal that goes onto our pensions administration team, or some of our smaller employers loaded up through directly putting that information into the portal manually. So I think that's been a really good thing that you've worked together with us to get that information. And it's historically, I think, the way that we've worked with the employers in Shropshire has always enabled us to be, I think, up there in the pension funds that our data has been historically told that we've got good data. We don't have a huge issue where we're fighting with employers to get the information about the scheme members. So I must thank you for that, because I think it shows today where we can sort of not fill a room, but we've got a really good representation here across our employers that you do engage with us. So thank you for that. We undertook the last valuation, so every 3 years we need sometimes even more data from you. We have to get that data sent off to our actuary, and this is where you then get your employer contribution rate set. So usually for 3 years you know where you're at, and then we've got this 1 year where we're collecting the data, the actuary number crunches everything, and then we're communicating with you to let you know what you're then going to be paying for the next 3 years. So what went really well, data received, and hopefully for the next valuation, which unfortunately we're already halfway there through the period to the 2019 valuation, but again, data good. We received it on time, we were able to get everything submitted on time to the actuary. So without your help, the pension fund wouldn't be able to do that. So again, thank you for that. We always have a little bit of a struggle with the odd employer. You know, as James said before, we've now got sort of 160 employers in the fund, so occasionally we know pensions isn't necessarily at the top of your list of things to do, but hopefully over the last few years the messages that we've been trying to get out have got to the people to the top of who actually runs the employers. The fact is that the onus of your responsibilities have been growing as well. The employers, you do have to do quite a lot really to get that data to us. So again, it's getting a bit more complicated. We got all of the contribution rates agreed, and so we had a few meetings, and again, we meet with different people at different times of the year or in different years depending on who's actually involved. Sometimes with the running, if it's a meeting around about collecting of the data, managing that day in, day out transfer of data from us, we may see different faces to when we actually are talking about the finances and what rate you're going to be paying for the next 3 years. Sometimes then we see some different people, which is quite nice, but they only pop up sometimes every 3 years. Valuation report again was produced by the deadline, so the actuary got that off to government departments as well, and for us, as we could actually produce it and get it online in time and to enable you to have all of your rates agreed. What didn't go quite so well this time, and we're not quite sure why, but it's the more of our employers engaged really well, data went really well. We agreed the contribution rates to be paid, but then in May, when we were expecting our first April contributions, quite a lot of employers, we just received the same contributions that we'd received for the March payment. Somehow, for some of our employers, and not all of them, but just more than we would have expected. We've got to communicate that message then down to who actually needed to take the contribution rates off. So we've got that as a little bit of something to work on for the next valuation, to make sure that whoever we're communicating with, we're also adding in, if we haven't got the direct contact perhaps who we know would be collecting our contributions month in, month out, that we make sure that it is actually communicating right down the line. It got sorted out, so it didn't matter. We picked it up and we got the message out there. But it was strange. It's not really happened before. We might have the odd employer, but there was definitely more than we would have imagined. Didn't quite get it right. The other thing that's increasing our number of employers is the schools converting to academies. So anybody who deals with the sort of education sector, if a school converts to academy, they actually become a new employer now in our pension fund. So historically, we've had our schools, part were Telford and Wrekin, part with Shropshire Council. Telford and Wrekin, one employer, Shropshire, one employer. We've now got the potential, as you'll see there, we've had 48 schools convert. I was just talking before with somebody, I think age now, I can't quite see that with these glasses, I need my glasses taken. 48 schools have converted, so we've got 48 new employers over the last sort of, since they were able to convert to academies. 12 of those in the last year. So we're dealing again, and we've got the potential for another 172 to increase the number of employers we're dealing with. So just getting the message out there. But for schools, whereas everything was dealt with by the councils for them, their payrolls, collecting the data, ensuring that we got everything from them, they've got to now deal directly with us. So I think it's come as a bit of a surprise to some of the schools just how much administration that being in the local government pension scheme does actually mean you have to undertake. What else have we been doing? So with the data that you're giving us and the records that we hold, every single active member and deferred members in our scheme, so that's a member who no longer works for you or has chosen to opt out of the pension scheme, but their benefits are still with Shropshire. Each year we have to produce an annual benefit statement. So hopefully if people are in the room are actually in the pension scheme, you would have hopefully seen your own. But that's what we do. In law now, we have to ensure that we've created a benefit statement for all of our members by the end of August. The date has come forward, which is one of the reasons why we are on your backs to get that information to us for up to the 31st of March as quickly as you can, because we are on a schedule to actually get those benefit statements out to our members. And for members who might have had a nice promotion during the year, or for our higher earners in the pension fund, what we also have to do is, on the back of the annual benefit statements, what we're looking for is how much has their benefit grown over the year. We also have to, as well as calculating what their benefit is, what's the current value for them, we have to actually keep an eye on how much has that benefit increased from one year to the next. And this ties in with revenues and customs regulations now, because people are only allowed to increase their benefits by a certain amount, and Helen will pick this up a bit later. And so we have to try and identify where our members actually need a pension savings statement, because they're going to have to do a tax return because of perhaps tax they need to pay on their pension savings as well as their earnings. So that's, again, we will be coming back to you year in, year out, basically, with some of the individuals, because we need pay to a different date. I won't go into it, because Helen will tell you and explain to you a bit more why we may come knocking on your door to have more information. We've got the Pensions Board now. Legislation came in 2014 where we had to, the governance was ramped up on all of the public sector schemes, and as well as the Pensions Committee, we now have a Pensions Board I'd just like to thank at least one of the employer representatives on the board for you is here, Liz Fiore from Harper Adams. Let's make yourself known. That's your employer, one of your employer's reps, so thank you for attending. So Liz also attends now on your behalf to the pensions board to ensure basically that the pension fund is running correctly. So they actually have a responsibility to ensure that we adhere to all the rules. So pensions committee oversees sort of investments and everything, but actually it's the pensions board in legislation now whose responsibility it is to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So we've settled in the pensions board, we've had change in the pensions board as well, and also committee members, new committee members. So if any of the councillors, Shropshire had all their terms of office were up this year, so we had the elections. So we've got new committee members. We haven't changed the whole of the committee, but we've got a good few members from Shropshire and Telford who are new, so we're having to train those as well. Trying to get our members to actually look at their benefits online. So our member self-service is, we call it MSS, but it's the online portal and the website where the employers and the employees can get lots of information about pensions. There's actually part of that that means that they can actually look at their benefits online as well. Because we get your pay now coming through on a monthly basis, so we know what somebody is earning, that feeds through to a calculator so people can model their own benefits, so they can have a look at if they want to finish early, what their benefits are through to normal pension age. And so again, by ensuring that we're getting that good data from you month in, month out, that's going to be helpful now to all of our members, because they can do their own modelling. There's certain things that the modeller doesn't do, so they'll come to us for calculations. But hopefully, if you're not registered yourselves, please have a look at doing it. We've got, as you see there, just over 30% of our active members are registered and actively using the portal online, and we've got a bit less of our deferred members, so just under the 30% there. But we were a bit disappointed with these numbers because we thought by now we should have actually more. But looking across the press in pensions, which we do when we're a bit quiet and have a look at what's out there, these are actually higher than is expected nationally across the whole country of what pension schemes manage to get of their members actively engaging online. So we're doing a good job, but we're not stopping here because we need to have everybody ensuring that they are aware of what's in their pension fund. So if you haven't checked your own, perhaps when you go back, have a look at going into Shropshire County Pension Fund website and have a look at what you can see of your own benefits. Check out whether your employer is giving us the right information. That would be a good one. Is your pay right? But also, anybody in the room that actually deals with communications of your own employees perhaps as well, it's also helping us message to your own members that they can access this information there. There is information available that helps them thinking about what they're doing with their work for you. So please have a look at that. I mentioned before about the governance being ramped up back in 2014. So the pensions regulator now actually has a statutory function to regulate the local government pension scheme, which they didn't used to have before. So we've got new codes of practice that I wouldn't say help us, they're there to guide us as to what the pension regulator is expecting from a pension scheme. And a lot of their guidance also helps the board and directs the board of where they want the boards across the funds to be looking at and ensuring the administration is correct. So Code of Practice 14 has got a lot in it around record keeping, what they expect us to be doing. So we've been working through the guidance to actually look at our own practices in-house to see where we can improve. So one of the areas, as I said, and why we're in the room with yourselves today, I suppose, is the data. We can't get away from what are we doing is we're actually looking after someone's benefit, and to be able to calculate that benefit, we can't do that unless we've got good data held about them on our system. So what we've done is have a look at how would we do some tests across that our pensions administration system to have a look at whether we can measure. We think the data is fairly good. Our actuary usually feeds back and says what they receive looks good, but on the surface of it that's fine, but how did we actually going to find out whether that's robust, whether it actually stands up to scrutiny? So there is, according to the pension regulator, their sort of language, they name data, common data or conditional data. So there's sort of certain data that's written down at the moment of the common data that they think should be accurate and what percentage needs to be accurate. And then they've got additional conditional data, which means it's your benefits are conditional on what you're actually holding. So as well as deciding that we're going to have a look at how robust our data is, then so what we undertook was to have a look at their sort of a questionnaire by the pensions regulator, so a self-assessment of how well are we doing. So some nice little graphs here. So we've actually undertaken a pilot with our software administrator and took the decision that actually we needed to invest some money in somebody writing some checks on the data. We haven't got the resource, we've got the capability in-house to probably have done this, but we haven't got the time resource to have actually written the amount of checks that we would need to do across our data. So you'll see here of the 5 bars, they're not that interesting in themselves, but those are the main categories we've checked of our conditional data. So we're looking at the members' benefits, so we're looking at the data that we would use on that system to actually calculate the benefits. So we've done lots of tests within that area. Different things, care benefits, so what we're looking there is have we got all the lines of data in for since 2014, so we were expecting how much pay have they received in that day, have we given them a benefit line for that care data. So you'll see that one actually is only the second lowest, that's 93.9%, so there is a bit of leeway there, so we're going to have to check on some of that. HMRC categories there, and then the contracted out category at the end. The contracted out category, being employers in the fund, you'll know that if you're dealing with the pay side of things, up until this last year, then of course all of our members were contracted out of the state second pension, so you had to deal with their national insurance on a different percentage rate than normal full rate national insurance. That finished, so now our scheme is contracted in because every contracted out no longer exists. But we already knew then on our records we have to capture from the DWP, we need to know a value of a pension they could have bought should they have been paying contracted in. So that's, we already knew they don't send the statements out historically. So we've got a big piece of work going on at the moment to ensure that we've got the right data from DWP coming back to us as well. But it was quite good because what it showed us is the areas across our conditional data where it was slightly lower than we would have hoped for. They weren't surprises. We knew we didn't have the contracted out data in every case, and we were already working on that anyway. So it's just sort of given us an idea of where else we need to look at working on with you. Common data looks far better. But as you'll see here, this is slightly just under 100% on the national insurance number. So occasionally we still have people where it struggled to get their national insurance number. Or for us, actually some of those on very old, perhaps widows' benefits that we're still paying, who historically may not have ever actually been given a national insurance number. So we're not far off 100% with those. And then the other main one is over on the far right-hand side there is the addresses. So it is difficult for active members, especially now that we've got the monthly processing between ourselves. Addresses is one of the fields that gets matched up every month, so we would hope for active members that we're keeping on top of that. But for a lot of deferred members, we lose track on them. It's the onus on the individual to try and actually keep us informed of their address. But unfortunately, pensions regulator thinks we should have 100% addresses, so we're also just starting doing a piece of work to try and see if we can track and trace some of those. So, it's what we have been doing, along with everything else that we do day to day. But what we're doing at the moment is following that data review. Then we've obviously got the high-level report there. We know where, according to the tests that we've run, and I think overall there was, I haven't got the data, there was millions of tests. If you take every single piece of data in member and what we've tested, it was a very robust test that we've run across all of the membership data. But we're going to have to come up with an improvement plan, because those statistics show us that not everything is 100%. We are realistic. You will never get some of those categories to 100%, but there is room for improvement. So we might be coming to yourselves for certain things. Because, remember, of that data, we've got certain tranches of the information we hold is down to the old final salary benefits. So historically, we needed to know that someone was in the pension scheme. We used to check that at the end of every year, where we find out that there was thousands of people that across all of our employers we didn't know about. We now find out those through, we still find them out, but we find them out every month now, so it sort of spreads the workload out for us. So we're getting to know starters and leavers straight away from you now, which helps us and hopefully helps you too. We've then got another set of benefits which is on 160, so we have to keep that separate. We've got that data in there. And back in those days, pay wasn't quite as important as it is now in the career average revalued earnings scheme, because of course the benefit that's accruing each year now is a 49th of what they receive in that year. It doesn't matter whether they're full-time, part-time, we're no longer interested as much as we were in that. That's what we needed to know before. So every time someone had an hours change, that's what we're interested in our historical data. Whereas now we need to know that you're giving us the right pay for them. So those are the checks that we're doing. And in the bar charts that you would have seen before, what it's actually looking for is the service looking correct? So when we needed to have all of the hours changes, have we got pay recorded for each year? And then what we're doing now is then we've got checks of have we got a line in for each care year that we now need? And does it look sensible? So does the pay look sensible? Is there a big change in the pay between 2 years? So there's always going to be bits and bobs that we're going to be coming back and checking things with you. But when we go through our action plan, if there is anything that looks that it could be the data historically was wrong, we may be knocking on your door just to do some checks with us as well to help us fill in those gaps. But hopefully we'll be spreading it out anyway. So watch this space. If there is any historical questions come through, hopefully by picking them up now rather than in another 10 or 15 years, it just means it should be less difficult than if we kept leaving it, because of course your records won't go back forever either. So we'll see how we go for that. Another area at the moment which may affect some of the employers in the room, not all, is what's going on because of Brexit. Lots of acts that were coming in on the statute books got sort of sidelined. We've had confirmation that the exit payments haven't disappeared, and there are we're understanding that there is going to be some new consultations. So for anybody in the room isn't aware of, the government's been looking at how much public sector employees can get as sort of leaving payments, redundancy, enhanced redundancies. or severance payments, as well as getting early payments of pensions, that they're looking at saying, actually, we shouldn't be paying public sector money in this way, so keeping an eye on what's actually going out to the public purse. The implementation timescales for each reform keeps changing, but they definitely haven't disappeared, is what we're actually hearing coming from the Local Government Association, who do have weekly meetings with sort of the DCLG. So they are, it's coming back into the forefront, and they do think that we're shortly going to have, the reforms may actually be in the first half of next year. And just to remind you, if you can read those, we've got 3 areas. The exit payment recovery, for anybody who is classed as a public sector employer, when that comes in, then that means anybody who may have had an exit payment of more than earning more than 80,000, if they come back into public sector within 12 months of leaving, you are going to have to recover that payment off them, and that payment would include the strain on the pension fund. There's a sliding scale of what they propose, so there is still some proposals out there, but this has been hanging around now for 3 years, 2 years, it keeps, but they've said it's definitely is there, and they can imagine that it will come in early next year now. The one in the middle is the one that will affect the local government pension scheme more, is the exit cap, that somebody cannot, well, if they receive more than 95,000, they're going to have to either get their benefits capped, or they're going to have to pay it back, or this one needs a change in legislation for us, because in our rules at the moment, if somebody is over 55 and you make them redundant, they're entitled to their benefits paid straight away unreduced. That creates a big strain on the pension fund, and that value of the payment of those benefits early is what they're going to include together with, say, the redundancy payment or something. So watch this space. We are expecting a consultation come out on that. They keep saying the autumn. We're already in the autumn, so it'll be around at some point in time. And then the one on the end is around the public sector actual schemes of severance or early retirement. So again, local government has been challenged to ensure that it isn't overpaying benefits. I think some of the other public sector schemes are still more generous than the local government schemes are as such, but that will be looked at nationally. Because of the delays on the exit payment cap, which was expected last year, never mind next year, the actuaries had held back from coming out of the valuation around about updating the factors that we actually use to calculate the early payment strain. And because it's still not known when and if next year the changes will be implemented, then the guidance we've just received from the actuary, and this just literally was last week, so we popped it in here for you, is that the cost of the pensions, that paying them early has gone up slightly from all of the information and the number crunching they did of the last valuation. So they've recommended that the strain figures get increased by 5%. So we're proposing, we will be communicating this out to everybody, that will be introduced in January, so we can give you just about 3 months notice. If anybody, the same as when we introduced the last change back in 2014, any employer who may have already actually costed out or agreed some early retirements on figures you've already been given, and you may have a programme perhaps that releases a few people next year and you've already costed out on the current figures we're using, you just need to contact us, so we'll always engage with everybody. It still costs you what it costs you, and if we don't introduce the new upfront increase, it would come out in your valuation figures anyway. But as I said, we're proposing to introduce them in January, but give me a shout if anybody's actually already agreed what you would think would be some that's going to be a material effect on you. You won't be able to increase the cost to yourselves in your budget. And going forward, what we're looking at the moment is performance reporting. We report on what we do in the team, but a lot of information coming out from the pensions regulator and for a pensions board is also performance, our performance. So we're tightening up on what we actually check on for ourselves, but also looking to introduce some performance across employers. Excuse me. As I said, Shropshire, we have a real great set of employers, but occasionally we may struggle to get perhaps leavers forms on time or pay retirement benefits within the statutory deadlines. So what we are trying to look at, so you will see in the future that we may be able to actually feed back on the performance of where employers may not be hitting quite where they should do some of the time scales, but watch this space around that area. Fair deal, anybody who's public sector who's affected at the moment by outsourcings, if your certain employers have to protect the membership of the local government pension scheme or a good pension scheme for their employees. New Fair Deal covers academies, so if there's any academies in the room, you're already covered by New Fair Deal, not the Pension Direction Order, which covers the other public sector employers in the room. And basically all Fair Deal was going to do is, in the last proposals we saw, is to take away the offer of any other pension scheme, a broadly comparable scheme. It's proposing that any transfer out of the public sector employer just offers the local government pension scheme. So we're still waiting for that to come away, and we've had confirmation again, because of Brexit, it just went on the back burner, but it hasn't disappeared. They still may be coming shortly with that. May come to you historical data checks when we're actually, if we find that we've got anything missing. The
General Data Protection Regulations.
GDPR affects us in ways that we didn't necessarily know, and affects obviously yourselves. So we've got, as you can tell there, Becky's going to pick up a bit on this. So she's my GDPR expert at the moment, looking at how it affects us, what we've got to change on our documentation. So we'll pick that up a bit later with you, but it is going to affect us all in small ways and bigger ways for some things. Training. Remember, let us know if you want any training. We're always welcome to come out. We'll always pull together if there are certain areas that certain employers struggle with. We can always put on a workshop. The better your data is, the better our records are. So we're always up for coming out and doing training, as well as the communications with the members. Remember, we don't just offer that, it's communications to your teams that are actually dealing with this work as well. E-communications, we want to get more electronic. That's just to actually, it's quicker, it saves the pension fund money as well, but actually it is quite traceable. So, rather than using the post, sometimes the information is there. We would like to get calculations for our employees onto the portal, so as if somebody asked for an early retirement calculation, we don't have to actually put it in the post. It's kept on their portal, it's secure, no one else can access for it, so that's the way that we're going, that's the way we like the information to be. It's not going to work for everybody, but for the majority, hopefully, that would just give a better service in the future. I mentioned it before, unfortunately, we're already starting to get ready and prepare for the 2019 valuation, because that's within 18 months away at the moment, I think now, so we're starting to get there. So don't forget, please keep your employer contacts up to date, because if we can't contact the right person, we can't keep you updated with what any changes are. Training, just give us a shout. I think make sure you do read our employer emails. I think Becky does feel sometimes that she might go into people's spam, but we usually will only send you something that we think is valid. So please just check those out. Keep an eye on our website. Always make sure that you get all the latest forms off our website as well. Don't store them in drawers. They're always there to be downloaded or printed. So if you do that, please. And apparently you've got a feedback form, so Becky says, can you fill in the feedback form for us, as we know how we've done today. So hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of the morning. We have got sustenance halfway through as well, a little bit of a carb input there with another coffee, but hopefully that's been of sort of interest for you, just to let you know why we are communicating with you so often, and what are we doing with your data? And I'm happy to take any questions. I'm here all morning and around at the end if anybody's got any individual employer questions. But anybody got anything?